you doing?
Ruined. Smash. Oh, smash you!
Reviewing Baldur's Gate 3 is proving to not only be a chore, but an impossible chore at that. Don't take that as an insult to the game or the obvious thousands of hours of love and care that Larian Studios has put into the title. Baldur's Gate 3 is fantastic. In a year where there have been 3 titles that I personally adore, Elden Ring, Diablo 4, and Remnant 2, Baldur's Gate 3 is showing that we can receive a fantastic gift more than once, twice, or even 3 times a year from developers of, all varying different degrees and different types of games. With that said, I've only made it through Act 1 and barely into Act 2 before I realized it's going to be a long time before I can do a proper review. I am, according to Steam, 62.7 hours at the time of writing this, at least, with restroom breaks here or there, shutting down the game, putting my computer into sleep mode for long periods of time. And with that much time spent in that first act, it's going to be impossible for me to release a full review anytime soon unless I just ignore my desire and sense of exploration and wonderment that comes with that exploration. So with that in mind, I'll be doing kind of an impressions of each act so far, and a lot of stuff will be placed here in this first act, or maybe I'll just go with this being a review as a whole anyways, because with the quality that this first act has given me, and my knowledge in having played Larian Studios' other titles, particularly Divinity Original Sin and Divinity Original Sin 2, I'm positive that the game will carry its momentum forward and end even better. In short, is Baldur's Gate 3 as amazing as people are saying? Are the critics all correct with the praise they're handing it? Are the people playing it correct with the praise they're handing it? Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 is amazing. But there's a caveat there. Baldur's Gate 3 is a CRPG, much like its series predecessors in Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and much like Larian Studios' past titles, Divinity Original Sin, Divinity 2, the other type of CRPGs they made as well. So, while my Act 1 took 62.7 hours, plenty of time was spent there sitting and mulling over what amounts to a paused combat, trying to get the best out of my team against ever-increasing enemy odds. Should I place my fighter here? Should I place my assassin rogue here? Should I spend the spell slot on this group of enemies, or save that for an encounter further down the road? Because those spell slots don't come back too easy and do take resources to earn back later in the game. It was also spent reloading prior saves when a long and drawn-out combat resulted in my party wiping. It was watching a self-proclaimed god wish my party to death, literally casting the spell Wish, killing me, giving me a game over, and my last save was a long time back, and having to replay through this section again. Slow is not an accurate description for the combat or the gameplay as a whole. It is a crawl through wet cement. The same can be said for every other facet of the gameplay. Spend minutes through conversations weighing the options of how to answer a question or proceed with your checks. That's not at all indicative of how passive dice rolls or skill checks play into an open world exploration on top of spending your time looking for seemingly hidden paths and alternate routes to hidden entire areas. So while someone like myself who loves the slow, meticulous, and heavy sort of style of gameplay of CRPGs, just be warned it might not be for you, and that's okay. Not every type of game is for everyone. I, for one, hate the typical battle royale after even continuously trying to force myself to play them and enjoy. But if you want to dive into CRPGs, you can get no better than Baldur's Gate 3 or anything else by Larian Studios, in fact. Larian Studios has put everything they've ever learned from making games in this genre, and only in this genre, into what is easily, I would consider their Magnum Opus. This type of game typically will never win a Game of the Year award. It just doesn't have a broad enough reach, no matter how great it is, but this year perhaps could be different. Baldur's Gate 3 is legitimately Game of the Year material. Choices upon choices upon choices actually matter here. not just some sort of illusion of choosing a color for your ending. If that, every other game provides. Your class creates choices outside of combat, aside from the typical in-combat choices you have from skills and weapons and stuff like that. So, in conversations and exploration, that class's knowledge that your character has from being a member of that, clique, they'll be able to use that. Your background has effects as well, where you allocate your stats. Little things you choose to say or do to other characters. Everything actually matters here. The majority of the time, outside of special class or race or background decision, and even including some of those, actions or choices will require you to call upon your attributes or skills, and you'll need to roll a dice and meet a requirement. Have no fear, though. There are plenty of ways to give yourself a leg up from your bonuses, from your attributes, the skill and equipment and spells. If all else fails, you can just scum save, and you can get that conversation going the way you wanted, or lockpicking, or a multitude of other options. Though, I do digress. Just create a well-balanced party and go with a roll of the dice. It's way more fun to play, and you'll have a great reason to come back to the title further down the road, or immediately once you do complete it the first time. It's hard to explain how the campaign and story is. It's fantastic. I want to remind you, I am only a little ways into Act 2. Act 1 has been out in the wilds for a while. 3 years, in fact, of early access. But it's fantastic. You have a large overall goal set for you. Get some damn tadpoles out of your head. But from there, its complexity becomes apparent. As you help or scorn others, explore this area instead of going over here, or even ignore things or not even discover them, that goal seems closer or further away, or closer and further away simultaneously. Small side jaunts turn out to be long, intricate adventures, tying into something else you are doing, and it all ties together perfectly. The best way to describe it, each quest is a tiny piece of ribbon that ties up into a nice bow that is the act. Yet those acts are all each their own ribbons that tie together into the overall story for the game. And even then, some of those smaller ribbons are coming up to meet that larger ribbon. I don't know how Larian does this with each game. They are masters at what they do, and we benefit from that. Baldur's Gate 3 is also beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous and breathtaking. From the time I've spent in the first region, and a little bit in the Act 2, dealing with druids and tieflings in the Emerald Grove, to infiltrating a goblin cult in their stronghold, exploring the Underdark below said stronghold, the ancient Saloon Temple, heading to an ancient Shar-worshipping fortress, to exploring a dilapidated ancient monastery filled with a Githyanki creche. It's all fantastic. There's plenty of vistas to, just take a moment and take a look take a moment to look across everything. There's details in places that there shouldn't be details where you can't even go. But they did that for us. The environments are all extremely varied and detailed. The large and sprawling locations, and even the small underground hideaways and cave systems. The effects from spells and the like are all a feast to behold, as well as your caster's sling spells, with area of effect or damage over time effects across the battlefield, and your frontline party members' magical weapons leave effects, and their abilities also have effects too. Such as your hulking barbarian just hunched over in a rage, holding their large two-handed weapon in one hand, just seething. You also can't forget that this is Larian, and while we're not on the level of, say, Divinity Original Sin 2, you can create vast sprawls of ground effects with throwables and combine spells or special arrows with them for the effects to take place. So while we're not going to be dealing with any cursed lightning fog in Baldur's Gate 3, they put enough care into the visual effects of letting you light entire rooms on fire with other effects as well. So don't be afraid to pick up those bottles of water, throw them around, throw some lightning into them, throw some ice into them, throw some oil around, throw some arsonist fire into some oil. It's fantastic. Create your own explosives troop. Lastly, what I want to cover here about just going to this Act 1 and a little bit of Act 2 is the voice acting. Voice acting is phenomenal, and it absolutely had to be in such a slow game that Baldur's Gate 3 is. Your origin companions are well voiced. These are the ones you see typically in the advertisements. Starion, Shadowheart, Lae'zel, all of them. All the ones that are prominent and up front. And they need to be. The main NPCs you come across, hell, even the random NPCs you all interact with once or twice are well done. Thought and care was put into their voice work. But any Dungeons & Dragons game wouldn't be a good game without a fantastic DM, and that's where the narrator comes in. She does one of the best voice acting jobs in the narrator role I've had the joy of beholding in any video game. Yes, that's even better than Bastion. And this is all just from the first act. The game is larger. There's more villains to behold. There's more areas to behold. There's vistas I haven't seen yet. There's dungeons I haven't seen yet. There's NPCs I haven't talked to yet. But like I said, this is from Larian Studios. And every single game they've ever produced has gotten better, and gotten better. And this is truly their Magnum Opus. This might be the best game released this year in a very niche genre. It was the second most played game on Steam concurrently ever in an extremely niche genre. It's now the second most pre-ordered PS5 game ever in an extremely niche genre. That is something fantastic. That is downright special. And this is a full game here, too. There's no bloat here. There's no Assassin's Creed Odyssey or Valhalla or whatever those are. Open worlds filled with random shit to go to that don't give you any rewards. You feel rewarded for exploring. There's no sort of super power creep from items or just a lack of power in items that you find. They all have the versatility and usage. It feels great. There's no hidden purchases. There's no cash shops. The only little extra bit you can do is, you know, get the deluxe version, which comes with a few cosmetic extras that are callbacks to their prior game. That's about it. It is a full game on release. That's what Larian Studios wanted to do. And what Larian Studios gave us in Baldur's Gate 3, it's something really special to Pearl. Baldur's Gate 3 is a once-in-a-generation, perhaps once-in-a-lifetime type of game that as many people as possible should experience it. It's long, but it doesn't feel artificially long, like I said. It has immense quantities of replay value and content for anything you might have missed prior due to a party composition or just an oversight. Take your time. Take your time with this game. The average playthrough is slated to be 70 to 100 hours. I almost hit 70 in the first act trying to find everything, and I know I still miss stuff. Baldur's Gate 3 is a must-play. Larian Studios deserves the praise they are receiving for releasing such a fantastic game to us. However, I can say that we as gamers do not deserve Larian Studios. That is for sure. So in a world full of live services, over-expensive microtransactions, fantastic worlds that were just not delivered to us, I'm looking at you, Bungie and Destiny. Give Larian Studios a shot and you will not be disappointed unless you just really hate CRPG. In that case, you're honestly missing out on some really fantastic games because CRPGs have some of the best games out there. The original Baldur's Gate titles, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, Divinity, the Divinity series, Shadowrun, anything by Spiderweb Software, little indie company. Really though, you should check out Baldur's Gate 3. It is such a niche game that has such broad appeal, it makes no sense. Larian Studios actually deserves any sort of money for you for this title.
What's better than a devil you don't know? A devil you do. Am I a friend? Potentially. An adversary? Conceivably. But a savior? That's for certain.